Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me okay. I am out here getting ready to film something with Vandenberg Space Force Base with the Space Force, and we're going to be answering some really cool questions and doing some really exciting things with them that I can't wait for. So that's why I'm on the side of the road and actually streaming this mission via Starlink. So yeah, I'm excited to see this because this is a really big mission. This is one of those missions that's like, I don't think a lot of people are going to realize how cool it is until they see images from this mission, because today 4 people are going to be flying above and below the North and the South poles. It's going to be a polar orbit with humans. And this is a first time ever. The highest any human has ever gone in inclination, so like its angle of its orbit, is not much higher than the ISS. I think the highest is, Scott Manley probably knows this, I'm sure, but it's something over 60 degrees, I think, but this is flying over 90 degrees, so it's basically flying literally over the poles, so the view of like the northern lights and the aurora is going to be amazing, and I can't wait for it. This is, the crew is incredible. It's a completely private mission, so that being said, this live stream is up right now, and I actually want to, and they're talking about research and science, so let's hop on over to this stream because it is already up. So let me pull that up and let's listen in, because there's a lot of stuff and it's already getting pretty close to launch. So let's tune in and listen, and I'll answer your guys' questions when I can.
And a digital detector plate. And so the crew is going to use these to take x-rays of different parts of their body. Why do we care about x-rays in space? A few reasons. One, if we're going to be walking all around the surface of different planets, we might have an injury, and an x-ray machine is a standard in any emergency room. But another interesting use is that bones actually lose their calcium in space from not being in gravity. And this machine can also help us measure astronauts' bone density, so we can actually keep track of how they're doing in that respect. And finally, this can allow us actually to look into machines. So if we have a machine that's malfunctioning, instead of having to take it apart and figure out what's wrong, we can just take an x-ray of it to diagnose the problems.
Now, while the engineering...
So by the way, I see a lot of people already asking, where is Tim? Why is it daylight and stuff like that? I said at the beginning of the stream, probably will have to mention this a few times. I'm currently out at Vandenberg, actually. Wrong launch pad. It's really embarrassing. Drove all the way out here. No, but actually I'm doing a shoot at Vandenberg tomorrow and Wednesday. It's going to be really cool. Working on 2 videos out here, actually. So you'll have to stay tuned for those. But that's why I had to start a tiny bit late, because I'm out here, and of course LA traffic and things like that always makes things take so much longer than you can ever think. So I just literally pull off to the side of the road to be able to stream this mission, because also the fun thing is on Thursday, hopefully I'll be able to see the splashdown and hopefully talk to the crew a little bit afterwards for this mission. So very fun. I'm really excited about that. So that's why I am where I am and why it's still daylight, and I hope that makes sense. Sorry if that's confusing. But anyway, they have a lot of cool science. They're doing x-rays in space. I probably should do a quick little miniature pre-launch preview, by the way. This thing is taking off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, historic Launch Complex 39A, of course, which is where most of the crewed missions for Falcon 9s take off from. It's launching a Dragon capsule, but the really cool part about this, besides it being a private mission, is that it's going into polar orbit. So this is the first time ever it'll be going to polar orbit. So let me know what questions you guys have. The mods will hopefully be queuing up some questions and stuff, and we'll get them up on stream. Remember, of course, super chats. I appreciate that, of course. All the donation and support means a lot. But we'll just pull up any good question. But as usual, by the way, they have over 4-hour launch window, but they have begun fuel up. So they are officially committed to this launch window at T-minus 28 minutes. So if it does not launch, if they have to scrub from here on out, it will be a scrub for the day. So because they began fueling of the Falcon 9, the commodities would end up being gone if they, they had the fuel's flowing in right now as we speak. If they had to abort, they would not be able to reset for today. They'd have to reset for the next launch opportunity, which I believe is tomorrow. So, let's listen to the experiments, because I'm distracted. I'm half listening to them right now, so let's listen in.
For long-term missions, and we are taking one step with Fram 2. They will be growing the first mushrooms in space, and they are going to be growing oyster mushrooms, a very delicious varietal that doubles in growth every day. So it is considered a perfect spacecraft. So we'll see how they do in microgravity.
Okay. Now, I understand after we return to Earth, the crew's got one other medical experiment they're going to do, and that is something about unassisted leaving of the spacecraft. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we have to think about exploration. So right now, when Dragon splashes down, we have a whole recovery team and ships and fast boats, and it's very exciting. But when you land on the moon or Mars or any planetary surface, there's not going to be a recovery team there to greet you. So we really want to start understanding what crews are capable of right when they land. And the best way to start understanding that is on a relatively shorter duration mission where they are a little bit deconditioned from not being on Earth, but not as much as, say, a 6-month mission. So this is the safest environment that we can do this test. And we're going to have the crew hop out of their seats on their own, take their footrests off, go down, get their survival gear, get it out of the hatch, get themselves out of the hatch, and walk all the way to the medical bay without any assistance.
No one's going to help them with their luggage. Okay.
I see why they're going to be working out on orbit so that they can be prepared for when they come back.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marissa, and sharing the information on these devices and research that they're going to be doing in space.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see the launch and all the great results.
Coming up.
In addition to the medical research, the crew will be operating an onboard amateur ham radio system, sending slow scan TV images as part of a high school and university age student competition, and they're calling it Fram to Ham.
Now, while it is a competition for students, you can still try your hand at receiving images and solving the puzzle if you're a ham radio operator and you have the right equipment. You can check out the technical specifications at from2ham.com. And we had an opportunity to catch up with the crew to hear about several of the activities that they have planned for their time in space, including the From2Ham. Let's check it out.
I'm an Australian polar adventurer, explorer. I've skied 4 new routes to the South Pole. These are expeditions that I've planned myself. I've looked at satellite imagery of these glaciers that have never been traversed before. And I'm going to have the opportunity as we fly over Antarctica and see those routes from above.
I just realized we might be primed for copyright strike with music. So let's answer a few questions, including I see actually some really good questions here. First from Webco Local: is this going to be heliocentric, this orbit? No, this is still in low Earth orbit. It's sun synchronous though, which means, or it's in a polar orbit. Sorry, not sun synchronous. Very similar things. So it's going over the North and the South Pole, and it's orbiting at about 450 or so kilometers in altitude. So similar to, I think it's between 450 and 500. So it's basically the similar altitude as the ISS, but it's at a very different inclination. So again, the inclination is 0 degrees would be like around the equator, would be a perfect 0 degree inclination. 90 degree inclination would be going over the North and South Pole. Anything beyond 90 out to 180 would be considered slightly retrograde, or all the way retrograde if it's 180. So sun synchronous orbits typically are about 97 degrees. They're slightly retrograde because of the orbital precession. Some crazy stuff that I do not understand at all makes it so that you actually need to be at a slightly beyond, just fully over the poles. And that segues us into this question, 3 dozen, asking, how long are they up there for? So they are up there for approximately 3. They're planning to splash down right now. If they take off today, they'll splash down on Thursday. That's hopefully not going to get in trouble here. Oh, great. Don't tell me I can't park here. There is a state trooper currently talking to Ryan. So we'll see if they say, if I have to move, this will be so stupid. Ryan Shalinsky out here. Like I said, we're out here to film some stuff, but we are basically off on the side of a road. But yeah, that'd be very annoying. We will see if that's the case. So I'll keep going, and if I get told, pause. If I get told I have to move, then I guess that's what I have to do. Let's see here. Malcolm Street, this is a very good question. Malcolm Street and Tim G. Gleason has similar questions that I'd like to talk about, and hopefully I have the opportunity to talk about if I don't get in trouble right here. So Malcolm said, dumb question, I thought only Vandenberg could do polar orbits. No, SpaceX has actually been launching polar orbits from Florida for a few years now. They just have to do a big dogleg maneuver. So they'll go south and then dogleg to kind of avoid the Caribbean. So, and on that same question, so Tim G. Gleason, how do you launch polar launches from Florida without dropping the booster on the Carolinas? So they don't fly north, they fly south. Similar to, you can also get into polar orbits here from Vandenberg by flying straight south as well. If you go south, polar orbits at one point on the descending node, you're going south, on the ascending, you're going north. So you could launch, theoretically, you can also launch into polar orbits by launching north as well. But in this case, here comes an Amtrak. In this case, they're launching south, and that's simply all there is to it. Let's see. From Temptation greets you. Hey, Tim has mentioned that they'll be exiting the spacecraft on their own, but I imagine they will be assisted if someone has a medical emergency. That's correct. Similar to, Inspiration 4, like they hopped out of the capsule pretty quickly, able to, jump around and all that stuff. So, they're not going to be in space long enough for it to really be considered any kind of issue. So, and let's see here. Heiko Mischler, by the way, this is the very first time that a female German astronaut goes into space. Just saying, that's cool. And a Norwegian female astronaut as well. So it's very cool. They're doing a lot. I'm really excited about the videography that's going to be happening. Seriously, like insane gear, like a red camera, some stereoscopic and 360 imagery. So VR, and it's going to be amazing. I think the mission itself, it might be easy for some people to miss it, but I think the results from what the crew is going to be accomplishing with media and stuff is going to be incredible. Block 5 or Block V5 gave a $2 super chat to the train. Thank you. Let's listen in here again real quick, because they are talking about how they swapped out the cupola.
Actually, a mock-up of the cupola right here. It's essentially a large dome-shaped window, providing incredible 360-degree views while in space. Hello, Sarah. Now, the cupola first debuted during the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021. Now, Dragon does have other windows on the sides of the spacecraft that the astronauts can use, but they're a lot smaller.
The cupola replaces the docking port or Skywalker hardware at the nose of the spacecraft, which is not needed since Fram 2 will not be docking with the space station or doing a spacewalk. And being surrounded by a glass dome is probably the closest feeling you can get to being out in space without going outside of the spacecraft. And Fram 2 will be the second crew to experience Dragon's cupola while in orbit. Here's a little bit more from the SpaceX team on developing the largest window in space.
Again, copyright strikes, so let's answer some questions. This is from Blue Raider 22. How hard is stage separation on the astronauts as far as G-forces are concerned? Not hard, and stage separation actually is relatively mild, other than because engine cutoff, you're going from 3.5, 4 Gs maybe on the booster. When the 9 Merlin engines are running, they throttle them down to keep the G-forces to a minimum. Then engine cutoff is not just like this immediate. I remember in Apollo 13, they showed it as like slamming into the harness. There tends to still be a little bit of residual thrust for a decent amount of transient. It's not like those engines cut off in a perfect instance and there's zero thrust. So you go from 4 Gs to 0 in a second. It's not quite that. Not quite that intense. It's a little bit more of a, the pumps have to spin down. Of course, the pressure is lower, but it's not just instantaneous. So it would be, pretty quickly feel like 0, but it's not like it gets slammed from 4 Gs to 0 Gs in an instant. And then the spool up and spin up of the upper stage with a single Merlin 1D is relatively mild at first, because the upper stage is completely full of propellant. So the G-forces at first are something like half a G or something. It's not even producing a full G. So I might have to double check that, but and again, the end of the second stage burn is actually the highest G points, if I remember right. And that can get close to 5 Gs on ascent. And they throttle it all the way down, but despite that, that one engine with a basically empty upper stage and its payload is still too much thrust to go much lower than 4 or 5 Gs. So. This is from Webco Local. Since orbit slightly retrograde, are they going to expend and ditch the first stage? No, they are recovering the first stage, I believe. It was weird, actually. We were looking earlier, and I didn't see where exactly it's being recovered for this particular mission. So hopefully we hear and see that, hear about it and see it here relatively soon. But I don't actually know the exact where the first stage is going to land. When we had looked it up just earlier, Ryan and I were driving. We didn't actually know, and I don't know if they've actually. I'm sure Gavin or somebody knows exactly where. But let's see here. Oh no, they're talking to Polaris Dawn astronauts. Sarah and Anna.
Gillis and Anna Menon.
Cool.
It's so great to be here with you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're thrilled to be here.
Anna, Sarah, we're super excited to have you with us today. And for those of you who are not familiar, Sarah and Anna spent nearly 5 days in orbit, along with their crewmates Jared Isaacman and Kid Petit. Polaris Dawn flew higher than any Dragon mission to date, reaching the highest Earth orbit ever flown.
And the crew completed the first ever commercial extravehicular activity with SpaceX designed EVA spacesuits. So we're excited to have them with us today to add some insight from that firsthand experience.
At this point, propellant loading has begun on Falcon 9 as Fram 2 prepares for liftoff in about 16 minutes from now. I'm sure you both remember what that was like. What do you think the crew is doing right now, and what do you think is on their minds?
Prop load, when you actually get to commit to that, is a really big milestone in this. And so I'm sure the crew is all focused, really preparing for the operation ahead. As prop load starts, you start hearing the vehicle come alive. You have massive valves on Falcon that are opening as prop starts flowing into the tanks, and you can hear it. The whole thing shakes and moves. And in the capsule, you actually feel that. The whole rocket sways at times. So I'm sure they're going to be experiencing all of that and, really getting into the operational mindset before launch.
Yeah, that's so cool. John and I have been working on Falcon and the whole time we've been here, but you guys got to experience what Dragon feels like and sounds like. It's just really cool.
Incredible ride. Yes.
Yeah, right now, you both are very familiar with Dragon, but not based on your spaceflight experience, but the roles that you had even before you flew in Dragon. What were those roles that you were involved in?
Absolutely. So
obviously I love Sarah and Anna very much, and I love this conversation, but I do want to, obviously we could watch this anytime. I do want to answer a few more questions, including Caffeine asking, aren't thunderstorms an issue? And the answer is that was definitely a watch item, but they've mostly moved out, and they wouldn't have begun prop loading even if they was currently in a certain state. That's actually something I'm going to be talking to Space Force here tomorrow and Wednesday, is about like how do you clear the range for weather and personnel, and what are the rules, and who determines those bounds, and try to get a really good understanding of that, because that's stuff that I don't quite get. There's certain criteria of cloud types and how far away lightning is, how frequent lightning is, or not frequent, but how recent was the most the lightning strike. So basically, the weather has been okay now, and it's trending in a positive direction. So they felt good aiming for the beginning of the over 4-hour launch window. And that's where we're at. From Pillars, this is a fun one. What are the chances we'll see this fly in the U.S.? So the cool thing is, you could potentially see a Dragon capsule flying on pretty much any mission, especially ISS missions, as it's getting close to rendezvousing. If you're in the right conditions to see the ISS, you'd likely see a much dimmer dot following the ISS as it's getting close to docking. And what's interesting though is, the ISS is at 51.6 degrees. So if you're above that latitude, I have no idea what that would be. I think that's beyond 51.6. I mean, Iowa's 42. I feel like that's pretty well into like Canada, but there's some people that would have never had the opportunity to see a spacecraft fly over crewed spacecraft flyover that might get the opportunity to in this flight. Now remember, it's only about 3 days, and remember, in order to see any spacecraft, Starlink or ISS or any other satellite, an iridium flare, whatever, it has to be when it's dark here on Earth, so maybe after sunset or before sunrise, and the vehicle has to be high enough up that it's actually receiving sunlight and then reflecting it, so you do see it. Now you'll notice that Starlink, when they're about to be deployed, you might see a Starlink train, but there's thousands, nearly 10,000 Starlink satellites or whatever in space right now, and you don't just see at sunset, you don't just see a million Starlink satellites or hundreds or dozens, because they do a really good job of reflecting the sunlight away and keeping it from ever hitting the ground. All right, let's listen in though.
12 minutes from liftoff, and while the countdown continues, let's meet the launch vehicle taking Fram 2 to space today.
Take a quick look here in the last minutes, but Falcon 9 is the first orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. For this flight, it'll be the 6th time this first stage booster has supported a mission. Now together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 450 launches, including one earlier today, and over 380 reflights.
That's a lot of launches in the Merlin.
Oh yeah, the crew on the way to the pad literally saw Falcon 9 launch for a Starlink mission. How wild is that? That literally one launched just a couple hours ago, and now there's another one.
Falcon 9's first stage has thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power. And the MVAC engine, which has a much wider nozzle, is optimized to 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum. Can you tell us how the ride was on Falcon?
Riding on Falcon is extraordinary. It is my absolute favorite roller coaster. At liftoff, you are momentarily suspended in a way that just defies physics. And then you start accelerating, pushing out through the atmosphere. I think a moment that stands out is main engine cutoff when you're first thrown into your straps. And it feels like the longest 11 seconds while you're waiting for a second stage engine to ignite. And then you start accelerating, and finally you end up in your orbit. Again, engines cut off, you're thrown forward, and then it's totally calm. Everything kind of lifts off, starts floating around you, but it goes from really loud to really quiet and serene.
Can you imagine saying that it was really calm when you're going 17,500 miles per hour?
Believe it or not, it is.
That's pretty wild to hear.
Yeah.
Now, when Polaris Dawn returned to Earth, you splashed down off the coast of Florida, but this flight, Fram 2, is the first time we'll be heading to the new location. Recovery operations for Dragon missions will now take place off the coast of California. That, as we said, will ensure that Dragon's trunk, when it's jettisoned during re-entry, will re-enter over the Pacific Ocean. SpaceX engineers did some tremendous work to adjust for the new trajectory. That included changing how Dragon maneuvers before deorbiting and when the trunk is separated from the spacecraft. So while a different trajectory than your return to Earth, what was it like for the two of you when you were coming home from space?
The return from space is also exhilarating. You still have those same heavy G-forces like you felt on the uphill, but instead of lasting for tens of seconds, they last for many minutes in duration. So maybe 7 minutes with those G-forces pressing you into your seat, feeling that pressure on your chest. But then on top of that, as the Dragon spacecraft is coming back through the atmosphere, the air around it is heating up, and you get this light show out your windows. There are neon pinks and oranges out your windows with occasional flashes of flames, and that is just the most remarkable view.
That is so cool to hear all the different experiences you guys seen, your own fireworks show a little bit. Now, as we mentioned earlier, after splashdown, once Dragon's hatch has been opened, the crew will attempt to exit the spacecraft unassisted. This is the first time this will be attempted with Dragon, and we are studying the crew's ability to exit Dragon without additional medical and operational assistance. Exiting the spacecraft without help will become more important for missions to places like the Moon and Mars, where the crew may need to exit their landing vehicle unassisted.
Okay, we've just got a few seconds before we get into the next major event in the countdown, but we're going to put you on the spot. You're the only two of us that have been to space and have gone through the splashdown. What's it like trying to get out of the capsule? Do you want dolphins?
The dolphins were incredible. It's very interesting readapting to gravity and taking those first steps. I think it's a great research experiment.
Let's exit 1. How many times have you been to the South Pole before?
To the South Pole, around 10 or 12 times, but to both poles combined, around 30.
How long did you take to ski there?
My last expedition in Antarctica, I skied in new routes
Yeah, they're
up
talking to the crew about their
Fourth Glacier and across the plateau to the South Pole. This expedition was almost 900 kilometers, and it took me 50 days to complete.
Can you believe that in just 42 minutes we'll fly from here in Florida to the South Pole?
Unbelievable.
Sounds like they're talking to Eric Phillips about his experience in the Arctic. And yeah, he's going to go from pole to pole in 46 minutes in one of these orbits this time around. But you're talking about, in the last seconds here, what it was like actually with splashdown, and then you got to get out.
It's one of the coolest moments coming home and getting to see all of the people back on the boat to get you out.
Stage 1 has started.
And so I think it'll be really interesting to see them kind of get more equipment out and proceed out of the capsule by themselves.
And we just heard a stage 1 engine trill has begun. You guys being on the vehicle during this time, could you feel that or hear?
Okay, I see a lot of common questions that I got to get to, including these ones. Apex Predator, no clue about this mission, quick review, and I'll also answer this one at the same time from Geek the Original. Sorry for the dumb question, but what is the polar mission about? So, not dumb questions. These are this is unusual, especially this is the first time ever humans will have flown on a polar mission. And a polar mission just means that the orbit goes around the North and South Pole. Hang on. Stage 1 fuel load just completed, so that's perfect. So it means the orbit is going around the North and South Pole. Most orbits, like the International Space Station, is at a 51.6 degree inclination. So that means it's northeast, almost a 45-degree angle in an orbit around the Earth. It means that you never would see above 51.6 degrees northern latitude, and you never see below, like in your orbit, when you're looking down, you would never see above, like your ground trace would never be above 51.6 degrees north or 51.6 degrees south, because on the opposite side you're seeing the south. So this is the first time any human will go over the North and the South Poles in a spacecraft. There were plans for that actually out here in Vandenberg, so that's where I am right now. I'm out at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California doing some filming this week that I'm really excited about. Over the North and South Poles, there was a launch pad that actually ended up becoming it's SLIX 6E, which first was supposed to be a Gemini launch pad for a secret mission. There was an Air Force mission called for the MOLE mission, which was the Manned Orbiting Laboratory. It was going to launch on a Titan II. Hang on, I think they're going to do like a...
Tanks are pressing for Stromback retract.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
Great news. The strong back that you heard called out there is the transporter erector, which you can see on your screen just to the right of the vehicle. Now, what's going to happen is the clamp arms are going to open up first, and then the strong back, where the TE is going to begin to retract away from the vehicle, just about 2 degrees. And you can see it's very slow on your screen.
The strong back is retracting.
Cool. That's what I wanted confirmation that Snarback's retracting before I kept talking. Okay, so this Gemini 2 had 2 giant strap-on boosters as well, and would have flown an orbiting laboratory with a Gemini capsule. And then the craziest thing about it is that the Gemini capsule was supposed to have a hole in the heat shield that was a hatch that could get the crew from the Gemini capsule down through a trunk and into the manned orbiting laboratory, the MOLE. And that was supposed to launch from Vandenberg. That ended up being canceled. Along with the Dinosaur, which was another interesting Air Force concept vehicle. And then the space shuttle was supposed to actually fly from SLIX 6E as well and fly in polar orbits. But after the Challenger incident, it caused a lot of rethinking and reconfiguring of the space shuttle and how and why, and a lot of safety margins and safety considerations. So no human has ever flown above the poles, because typically, especially in the US, we have to launch from Vandenberg until just a few years ago when SpaceX started launching polar missions from Florida by flying south out of kind of a little bit southeast, just kind of hugging the coast of Florida, and then doing a dog leg. So once the stage separates, the first stage booster will land down in the Caribbean, And then the upper stage will dogleg and actually straighten it out so that it's going into that polar mission. They can actually go beyond polar orbits into retrograde orbits from Florida. I believe it's 97 degrees is about the maximum they've ever flown. Hang on.
LOX load.
Another call out quick. Stage 1 LOX load is complete, hopefully. So we're getting close, guys. Oh, I'm feeling.
LOX load is complete.
There we go.
All right, we've got a good LOX load on first
Dragon is in
stage.
terminal count and is on internal power.
And we've got the confirmation Dragon has gone internal power, coming down from the crew back to the Dragon team here in the Mission Control Center. Next major activity, T-minus 2 minutes. Stage 2 LOX load will complete, and that'll finish loading all propellants on the Falcon 9 first and second stages.
Sweet. So we're getting really close here.
We do have a crowd building up here in front of Mission Control.
So yes, this is a
Stage
crewed
2 LOX
launch.
load is complete.
All right,
Great
right on
news.
time.
Yeah. It's getting pretty exciting here as we get just under a couple minutes away from liftoff. Now that propellant loading is complete, that means that
Dragon is in auto idle.
1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen are now loaded on the Falcon 9 vehicle. And we will begin some venting. This will be some venting of the...
Ground gas closeouts have started. Expect loud venting.
Perfect timing. That venting is going, you may see some white clouds around the vehicle. We are venting out the liquid oxygen line, and that colder air meeting the warmer ambient air in Florida is creating that condensation. And I like to describe that like the condensation building around a cold glass of water.
So real quick, on this video or photo, this shot before it gets too late, vehicles in startup. Okay, cool. Also, really importantly, I can tell that the pointy end is up and the flaming end is down, especially after ESAR's flight the other day where the flaming end was up and the pointy end is down. This is a good call to have. This is looking fantastic. Go Fram 2. I'm going to listen in here. Good luck.
Go for launch.
And great news, we are go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, Fram 2, go for launch.
And heard one call
T-minus
from the
30
crew.
seconds.
One last call from the Fram 2 crew. Let's watch as the Falcon 9 vehicle takes Dragon and Fram 2 into space.
There we go, guys. Good luck, everyone. Fly safe. Stop.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Let's go. Right on time. There's going to be some incredible images.
T plus 35 seconds into the Fram 2 mission, the first ever human spaceflight mission to cover the poles.
And we are throttling down the engines on the first
Power
stage.
telemetry nominal.
On the first stage vehicle for...
Stage 1, throttle down.
Oh, it's perfect timing with these callouts. We throttled down the engines for max Q, and there's max Q. It's the maximum dynamic pressure that the vehicle
Falcon
sees
9
on
is
ascent.
supersonic.
Confirmation we're supersonic. We're preparing to throttle back up on first stage Merlin engines.
Stage 1, throttle up.
Confirmation we're back up on power on the 9 Merlin 1D engines.
Stage 1, Bravo.
1 Bravo
Copy,
called out
1
by
Bravo.
the crew. That means if there was a need for an abort with the first stage now emptying itself of propellant, Dragon would fly a different profile than if, say, right off the pad we'd had initiated. Waiting for the MVAC-D chill call.
MVAC chill is underway.
We're beginning to chill the second stage engine in preparation for its ignition, coming up in less than a minute from now.
We also have a few events that are going to happen back to back. We'll have MECO stage separation and second stage engine ignition. MECO is main engine cutoff. That's where we will shut down all of those 9 engines, which you're seeing there on the first stage vehicle to slow
Stage 1, throttle down.
And we've got a live view of the crew on the vehicle at this moment, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
And we will have
ascent.
MECO stage separation and MVAC ignition in just about 10 seconds from now.
We're beginning to throttle down the Merlin engines in preparation for main engine cutoff. You on the left looking up at the second stage engine nozzle.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2.
Copy, stage 2.
MVAC ignition.
There we go, baby.
And there we just saw MECO stage separation. The MVAC engine has ignited, and we've also started the boost back burn on the first stage, which you can see there on your left.
It's bright enough. There's going to be jellyfish, so you're going to the people from the ground will see that illuminated by the sun.
Events that just happened right now that the Fram 2 crew is experiencing, but you guys also got to experience that.
Yes, I remember. Now we're in stage 2, and I remember that slow buildup of G-forces during this stage. The first stage, the G-forces come on fast, but the second stage, they're a bit slower. And so right now, you're starting to feel it come on faster and faster, and you feel that pressure into your chest. You feel yourself being pressed into your seat, harder to move your hands up. It's an exciting ride, and you see the minutes counting by until the moment that you know you'll be in space.
Yeah, you're right, because
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Sorry.
good call out from Guidance Navigation Control Officer. Trajectory is nominal for the crew.
Dragon, copy.
And Commander copies that call out. But yeah, you had a good point. Well, we talked earlier, the second stage engine's over 200,000 pounds of thrust. There's more than 200,000 pounds of propellant, so when it first lights, it's not accelerating very rapidly. But Sarah, what's it like when you get near the end of the burn? We heard Bob and Doug back on Crew Demo 2 call it like driving down a gravelly, bumpy road at high speed.
It's definitely more, maybe a little more vibration than first stage because the engine is so much closer to the spacecraft. So you absolutely feel a difference in the sensations you experience when you're riding on the second stage.
Cool.
I'm sure the Fram 2 crew is feeling something similar. They're still inside of Dragon, which is still attached to the second stage, and on your left-hand screen,
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
on the left hand of your screen, you can see a view of the MVAC engine ignited.
Nominal.
But coming up in a couple of minutes, we'll have the entry burn on the first stage, which is currently making its way back down to Earth. And we did perform a boost back burn on this one.
Yeah, we did a one-engine boost back burn. We didn't have, normally when you launch to the east or northeast in a crew mission, you take advantage of the Earth's rotational velocity. But in this case, we're pretty much going straight south, and so you don't get that eastward velocity. So the first stage needed to use a little more propellant to get the crew up into the right position for stage separation. So we can't bring the first stage all the way back to land like we might do on an ISS mission. So instead, we're going to land on the drone ship, but not as far south as we would normally do
Dragon,
if this
SpaceX,
was
trajectory nominal.
something like a Starlink mission. Another nominal trajectory.
Dragon, copy. Nominal.
And the crew recites it back. We've got good comms with the crew. But yeah, Jesse, to your point, we are coming up on the second part of the return of the first stage, and that's going to be the entry burn. First stage will start the center engine and then light 2 additional engines. We should see that coming up right now in about 7 seconds. Meanwhile, the crew continuing to head to space.
The arms are probably getting heavier and heavier. Not probably.
During this time, we would continue to monitor the altitude as the vehicle kept rising and rising.
Yeah, you got the displays there where you guys can monitor that during the launch.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
And we did see on the left-hand screen that the entry burn has begun.
Copy. Nominal.
Entry burn did complete. We didn't hear any callouts, but we do have a green screen here. We have a good entry burn. Second stage continuing to head towards the separation orbit. First stage heading to the drone ship.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
We are expecting the landing burn on the first stage to occur in about 20 seconds from now. That'll just be a single engine burn on the vehicle. Once again, the M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust, which is...
I knew we were going to get comments on the green screen. Green screen means screen full of green, like all systems green as opposed to any systems red or any other concerns. So a green screen would be a good thing. That's what you want to see on your telemetry.
Where you can reach if there's a problem right now. And we've now got video on first stage. Landing burn has begun. And a view from the drone ship. Legs are deployed.
No surprise there.
And touchdown after 6 flights.
Yep, that's what we expect.
And the booster that has taken the Fram 2 crew out into space has now made it back to Earth.
Yeah, Jesse, we just heard the call out. I don't know if you hear it in the capsule on your flight, but we heard the terminal guidance call. We've essentially reached the altitude. Now we're working the angular momentum of the orbit. So we're going to listen in. We're just seconds away from shutdown, and about less than a minute after that, we should have Dragon separation from the second stage.
And back shutdown.
There we go. That means they're officially in orbit. We'll wait for a good orbital call out, but that's the concern.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And great news there. We heard the call out for nominal orbital
Dragon
insertion.
copy. Nominal.
Dragon copies nominal.
Launch escape system disarmed.
Oh, another good call out. They're in orbit where they want to be. They've disarmed launch escape system. Doesn't need it anymore. We're 191 kilometers up. We've got the view of the crew.
Polar bear for a zero-G indicator.
Right now, Dragon, or the second stage, is going through a very short period. We're making sure that we're pointed in the right direction. We've got the engine shut down, purging gas, and it's separation.
Fram 2 crew is flying on its own on Dragon.
Dragon, on behalf of the Falcon team, we're honored to deliver you safely to your polar orbit. Enjoy the views of the poles, send us some pictures, and our hearts and minds will be flying with you as you go over the poles. Have a great flight.
And Dragon, this is your launch director here. Pretty wild to see the Fram adventure sailing to the poles once again, over 130 years from its christening. This time, though, with Starlink. Godspeed, Fram 2. Cheers.
With Starlink, because they do have Starlink on board. So they'll be able to send us, hopefully be able to have downlink quite often, high bandwidth
SpaceX
downlink.
team calling up to Dragon. What you're seeing right now, the shots of Dragon, that was the Draco thruster checkout. And there's the crew. And I think Jesse and Sarah on the right next to one of the small crew windows, that's probably their zero-G indicator, as we call it.
Yeah,
I can't quite make it out.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
Copy. Nominal.
And as we don't have views, what you're seeing there on your screen is mission control here in Hawthorne. Again, the crowd that we had watching the Fram 2 crew launch into space. We also saw the zero-G indicator. Hopefully we'll get another live view where we can see what the zero-G indicator was. You guys had a zero-G indicator on your mission, so you know, and I'm probably...
By the way, this crew met on a polar expedition, by the way. So polar bear not only makes sense because some of the crew spends a lot of time in Svalbard, Norway, where it's illegal to leave the city, the town, without a rifle or a gun because of polar bears. That's a fun little fact for you. But also polar bear makes sense. Polar orbits, polar bear. I love that. That's super cool. So yeah, they're officially in orbit. They're in a polar orbit. They'll be going over the North and South Pole every 45 minutes, more or less. I can't wait to see the images of this because there's actually a lot of solar activity right now too. So I think there's going to be some really beautiful aurora and things like that. So it's going to be pretty amazing. A lot of questions from you guys. I'm kind of listening in, making sure I'm not really missing anything. Sorry, of course, a car is driving by right now. This is from Astronaut. How does the booster landing work for this mission? Is the drone ship going to be higher up in the Atlantic or will it be in the same area? So remember, they're flying south out of maybe, I think you asked this question well before, before they talked about it more on stream, but they are flying south. They flew south out of Florida. So the drone ship is off the coast of the Florida, and they did a small boost back burn to keep it closer, basically, and within an easy place to be able to catch it. And you can just determine how much of a boost back burn you can do, what kind of margins you have by the profile mission, like how much of that, basically you take it from your upper stage. So does the upper stage, how much energy does the upper stage have based on the destination and based on how heavy the payload is? And then you can determine how much work does the first stage do. If the first stage has to do a lot of work because it's a heavy payload or it's going to a really high orbit, then the booster needs to be caught downrange. If it's not so demanding, they can maybe save some literal fuel of the drone ship and move it a little bit closer. Or if it's has a lot of margin and the booster doesn't need to do that much work at all, they can do a return to launch site landing. This is a good question from Drac Richards. Is there a new episode of Spacewalk yet, Tim? Been waiting a few weeks for a new one. You are right. I was actually supposed to do one. I was going to do one on my road trip, but so far I've been road tripping from Iowa out here to Vandenberg just for had some family vacation. I had my 40th birthday recently, so I spent some time snowboarding with friends and family vacation, and I was thinking on the way out west here to Vandenberg that I'd do an episode, and I haven't yet. So thank you for the reminder. I've been enjoying audiobooks and podcasts a little too much, so I will get on that. And those of you that don't remember or realize that I have a podcast, check it out. It's called Spacewalk. So find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Spacewalk podcast. Josh Edwards, since our magnetosphere funnels space radiation to the poles, that's how we get northern lights. Is the crew going to have a higher radiation dosage than the crew on the ISS would? I don't actually know the answer to that question. I would imagine that you likely would, but I think the biggest thing isn't necessarily it's not just all the radiation. It's it is ions. There's got to be a higher concentration. So you would think that there definitely is a higher concentration of radiation, but for a 3-day mission, I'm sure it's still extremely low. But I would love to. That's the question I'll ask the crew. I'm supposed to be able to talk to them while they're on orbit, and hopefully have an opportunity to talk to them afterwards. So I'll ask them about that because that's actually a really, really good question. This is all from Drac Richards. Thank you so much. Saying been a subscriber since the spacesuit days. Love the way you bring space down to Earth. It makes it easier for plebs like me to understand. You are welcome. Nose cone's open, by the way. That's a good. So now the cupola will be open, so they'll be able to see that beautiful giant glass window now that was being, was obscured by the nose cone. This is from Name Withdrawn. Wouldn't the G-force be pushing on their backs when entering the atmosphere? Yep. That's exactly right. They're laying on their back. And re-entry is the same types of G-forces as on ascent, and that's by design as well, because then the seats, absorb. If you were to launch, sitting straight up and down, basically, it would go through your spine. It would compress your spine, and that would be very bad for 5, 6, 7, 8 Gs. Probably wouldn't be deadly, but it wouldn't be comfortable. So instead, they're basically laying down so that your entire body is supported more, and you can distribute your weight a lot easier that way. So yeah, the G-forces are the same on the way up as the way down. It's just longer during re-entry because the re-entry process just takes a long time. Let's see. Well, thank you, Drac, again. I appreciate that. I'm glad that I helped make it easier to understand for you. Thank you. Let's see, from Michael Mara. Everybody asked, will they do an EVA in this mission too? By the way, I think, let's see if this works. Look at that! If I click on EVA, it shows us what the definition is. Oh man, that is so cool. Amazing. Jeffrey, you are awesome. So wait, let me see. It did show up there, but yeah. So EVA means extravehicular activity. We're working on adding more and more vocabulary so I can bring it up on screen when I'm talking about things like that. So their stream's already ending. Jeez. So that is really quick. So sorry. I didn't realize that was gonna happen. So wait, did my camera just follow me? How? What? Has it been doing that the whole time? I did not know my computer can even do that. I have a new laptop and I didn't know it was tracking me artificially. It's obviously not mechanically tracking me. What? Sorry if that's been distracting. I had no idea it was doing that. That is hilarious. Okay, anyway. I'm just gonna sit over this way now. Okay, so I could turn this music off too. That's gonna be good because it's been really hard to talk. The way I have to do this, I can't turn things up and down very easily. So, all right. Anyway, let's do another question from DP Devo. Hey Tim, my daughter is a journeyman pipe fitter and was just hired to build water deluge piping at Boca Chica. She'll be able to watch launches from her front door. That's so cool. That is definitely the place to live right now if you want to see huge rockets fly. That is the number one place on Earth for giant rockets launching. So very cool, very excited for her. So congrats on the job. JS Web Music is the new Is this the new Dragon? Nope, this Dragon had flown before. They had to re-outfit it with the cupola. Super Cleary Photo. I'm looking everywhere for a flight path map. Will this be visible in the sky in New York? Under the right conditions, but not during ascent because it flew south. Period. Bill Dowd, Tim, will SpaceX maintain recovery assets on the East Coast as an option? They have to have, yes, they have to have some recovery assets during, in case there's an abort, they have to be able to recover and safely retrieve the crew. So I'm pretty sure, I actually don't know what that exactly looks like, but I'm guessing they basically now just have one off the East Coast and one off the West Coast because this will re-enter right there, actually. I'm near Vandenberg. It's going to literally be splashing down. If you were where I am on, hopefully now Thursday night, or Thursday afternoon, I guess, would be when they would be re-entering. You would have a chance of seeing that, actually. It's going to be probably too far offshore to see the parachutes. But you might be able to see, probably won't, not during the day, you might not see re-entry. But that's going to be really, really cool. So what was the, yeah, so this will be the first time they're actually recovering off the West Coast for a crew mission. And the big reason this is going to be going forward, that's going to be how they're going to be doing that, because previously they used to detach the trunk, which is that unpressurized section that has the fins and sometimes has, it's a place to hold cargo on ascent. If it's stuff that stays like attached to the ISS, like solar panels or a docking port or something, or cameras or something that stays, outside and doesn't need to be pressurized, would fit inside the trunk of the Dragon capsule, the thing with the fins, and it's also the radiator, it's also the solar panels as well. So they used to just ditch that and then deorbit the spacecraft. What that means is that the trunk would stay in orbit for quite a while, for a few months, and eventually, drag would catch up to it, and it'd slowly, it'd start to get lower and lower and lower, and all of a sudden it hits a critical point and it'd re-enter, uncontrolled. And generally that'd be fine. They would think that most of it would, re-enter and burn up on re-entry, but unfortunately some of it has made it to the ground It did not demise like they kind of thought it would. So now they changed their plan. They just said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Just so we don't accidentally have a trunk land on somebody's house or pieces of a trunk land on somebody's house, we're going to do the deorbit burn and then detach from the vehicle. So that's what they're, do the deorbit burn, then detach the trunk from the vehicle. The trunk will then deorbit right away, pretty much with them, but they'll do a little bit of a maneuver to make sure there's clearance between themselves and the trunk. So it's just a little bit different order of sequence. It actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And the reason they have to do that off of the coast here in California as opposed to doing splashdowns in Florida is now that trunk will be re-entering. If they did that same process, the trunk would likely, re-enter and land in Florida now instead. So when they do it on California, since you're coming from the west, the trunk will just always be entering in the Pacific, just short of where they land. So the random ferret, maybe you heard or saw, sorry, this is kind of an old question. Yep, they had the cupola. So they have the amazing view, which would be great because they have some incredible cameras, 360 cameras, stereoscopic VR cameras, red cameras on board. I mean, they are, the cinematographer on board is going to do some incredible work. So that's fantastic. Let me pull up, actually. I should probably pull up, I don't know if they actually have a list of all the stuff. Hang on, how do I do that over there? 1 second. Let me get it on the correct Fram. Oh, actually, it's f2.com, which is hilarious. I don't know how, like, Formula, like F2, as in, like, Formula 2, how they don't have that as a website. So Janice, or Janique, is the film creator and the videographer who specializes, what's really cool, she specializes in, let me get this pulled up for you guys. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier because I was in a rush. All right, so she specializes, crap, hang on, let me get full screen again, enter full screen. Sorry, doing this on the side of the road is not ideal. Okay, so she specializes, Janik, I think it's just pronounced Janik, it might be Janik? Okay, anyway, she specializes in, she's the director and cinematographer living in Svalbard, so she knows all about having to have a rifle with you anytime you leave the city because there's so many polar bears. She's uses cutting-edge technology, creating next-generation technology for movies in remote and hazardous environments such as the Arctic Ocean, aviation, and now space, quite literally. So, yeah, she's done a lot of cool stuff, and I talked to them briefly a few months ago when this was announced, and it sounds like this is just going to be one of those things where the imagery from this mission is going to be absolutely fantastic. So as exciting as the launch was today, I think in a little bit here, when we get to go back and see what they produced from this mission, it's going to be amazing. So let's see here. Let's see. Marcus Scrivens, hey Tim, do you know if SpaceX is concerned about a potential X-class solar flare from a massive sunspot turning in to face Earth? And do you think they may abort the mission early if there's a substantial flare event? If there's a substantial flare event, I mean, depending on orientation of the vehicle, how much mass and what kind of substances between you and the solar flare, you might be able to mitigate it fine. I'm sure they're watching that, and I'm sure that they're going to make sure it's prevented. If it was really substantial and it looked like it was coming right at Earth, I don't know if they'd try to do like an emergency re-entry. It'd have to be extremely substantial, like, because they're still somewhat protected by the magnetosphere and by, man, I don't know. I think it'd take a lot for them to consider risking an emergency abort because of solar flares. So let's keep going here. Marcus Scrivens, the sun weather is concerned because the magnetosphere pulls particles down to the poles. That is correct. This is from, and thank you so much for your support, from Lock Robster instead of Rock Lobster. I really like that name. How long does the separated second stage debris stay in orbit? So now it won't. Previously it was months. Now the second stage, the second stage, sorry, I was thinking of Dragon Trunk, sorry. Second stage typically deorbits within an orbit or two. So within, and they deorbit it and it splashes down. That way they don't create any space debris. So that's how that happens. So hopefully we don't have any issues. By the way, I'm curious in chat, those of you that are hanging out still, how is the video been? I'm actually streaming this with Starlink, and it's probably a good thing because I don't even think I probably have good enough cell phone reception where I am. I do not. And B, I just think that's really cool. So we're going to be able to hopefully get some live video feeds, or I don't know about live to the public, but they will be connected via Starlink on this mission as well, which is very exciting. How long are they going to be up there? The current plan is Thursday, pending weather. So the big issue for any mission on is the recovery assets, is making sure there's not huge waves, not a ton of wind, that the recovery zone is clear. So assuming decent weather out here, literally right out here, this on Thursday is the plan. So it could be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I think, are the primary return options. So this is Rob Glance. Do you know how much more cost efficient it is to launch now than it was during the space shuttle era? So the space shuttle cost roughly, over $1 billion, and there's a million ways you can skin that cat, and people put different numbers, but realistically about $1.5 billion, all said and done. It's a lot of money. This was likely closer between 100 and 200 million, so a lot cheaper. Now granted, the shuttle, when it flew, humans could also launch almost 25 tons of payload capacity, which is an asset on its own, and the fact that you could also have human service and do it. The shuttle was just kind of a different beast, but it was an expensive beast, so this is a lot cheaper. Wheelbarrow, thank you so much for your super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Mans on Mars, Tim, you are pretty close to the train tracks. I'm actually not. It looks like it. I see in your screen, especially if I go like this, it looks like I'm close. I'm not at all. I'm actually far. I'm on the road. Well, not on the road. I'm just on a pull off. Almost like a little parking lot. So, yeah, I'm fine. I appreciate your observation. This is from Steve Ransom. What are your thoughts of Liam Lawson being demoted from Red Bull? We're talking Formula One, huh? Yeah, love Liam. He's a really, really, really nice guy. I know that some people don't see that side of him in his Formula One career. I'm sorry that we're talking Formula One in a Space podcast. But I think, frankly, promoting him prematurely, I think he should have had a full year to develop at VCarb in the first place. That's my opinion. I think that just would have been better for everybody, and giving Yuki a chance. I want the best for Liam, obviously, and I think he's going to perform really well at VCarb this year. I think that Red Bull made a fiasco out of a lot of things. So anyway, holy crap, from Tyler Matthew Harris. Thanks for doing such a great job on the Apollo video. Thank you so much, Tyler, for the... Geez, that is awesome. That's going to be dinner for Ryan and I tonight. That's amazing. Thank you so much for the very generous support. I am, if you can tell, if you can't notice by me being happy to be streaming on the side of the road and on a long road trip for a few weeks now, getting that video done was a massive weight off my shoulder. I said that after, after like my Aerospike video and my Raptor video and my Soviet video was a huge, actually, ironically, after the Soviet video is when I ended up going and seeing a launch in Kazakhstan. And so that was kind of my break. I went on family vacation. That's funny. I get these videos done right before a big family vacation. I got the Soviet rocket engine video done right before I went on family vacation, and then immediately left family vacation and went to Hawaii. Now this time I finished my Apollo video. Immediately after that, went on family vacation, and now I'm coming out to shoot stuff here at Vandenberg. So it's just funny that it always lines up with a family vacation. Maybe it's those are my hard deadlines. I'm like, I can't leave ever again without getting this done. So from Sean Parker, happy belated birthday. I just turned 40 last Wednesday and also celebrated my snowboarding. That is awesome. I hadn't snowboarded in a few years, so it felt really good to get out and do some fun stuff. So feeling refreshed, feeling renewed, and excited about what I'm working on this week. It's going to be really fun. Trailofia, is there a viewing area at Vandenberg for launches? Not really. Vandenberg's not amazing to watch launches generally because it's hilly. So you can't really see any rocket on the launch pad from any public viewing point around Vandenberg. That being said, once it clears the mountains, it's a great view of ascent, pending weather, which is a big concern out of Vandenberg. It's often very foggy. That's why we call it Vanden Fog or Foggenberg. And the cool thing is, though, a lot of the missions that launch from Vandenberg, if they're not Starlink, do a return to launch site landing. So you have a chance of seeing it come right back down very close to the launch pad. So thank you for your question and support. Uli Buoy, at that inclination, can we see Dragon from Fairbanks, Alaska at night? We cannot see the ISS from here. So yes, you would be able to it has to be passing over you during that twilight hour. So either after sunset or before sunrise. And clear skies, a lot of people will have the opportunity to potentially see this because of that. So I can't wait. The Infinity Doctor per ChatGPT. Per ChatGPT, Elon Musk oversees engineering strategy, launches, crisis management, funding, and team culture at SpaceX. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. Yep, he is, after all, the CEO. So that sounds about like the right way to describe his roles. Thank you. I don't know why you had to ask ChatGPT for that. InfoSec just became a member. Thank you so much for your membership. Man's on Mars. Tim, have you ever put a penny on the train tracks? Not since I was a kid. I feel like these days that's a bad idea. It's like you're just asking for being labeled as a terrorist or something, because who knows what's going to happen. Lastly, okay, hang on. How do I do that? No. There we go. Okay. So I think we're going to go, and I got to get us fed and checked in to our hotel, and then got to get up early to do a 2-day shoot here at Vandenberg. I'll give you guys, there's only 6,000 of you watching right now, so I'll give you you guys get a little secret insight. We're doing a video specifically on how do you track an orbit and calculate and know about space debris. Space debris has been a topic I've wanted to talk about for a long time. So I figure I better talk to the experts on space debris, which is the U.S. Space Force. They track and catalog everything. So they're the ones to know. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And the other video topic I'm also talking about is how do you clear the range for a rocket? Who says it's go? Your go for launch as far as the marine and the air traffic and weather. That's something also that Space Force is in charge of as well. So 2 video topics. That'll be broken up into 2 separate videos. So I'm really excited. It's actually going to be I've been talking to a lot of really cool people about it, and I'm really excited to be able to collaborate with Space Force on this, because I think those are really cool topics that I've always had questions about myself. So hopefully I learn a lot, and whenever that happens, I hope that you also learn a lot. So, okay, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Thank you guys so much for listening in and hanging out with me, and congratulations to Fram 2. Can't wait to see what images you guys have from up there flying over the poles. Amazing, quite inspiring. You know what? I wonder if I'll be able to see it, depending on its track, where it'll be wouldn't that be crazy if on its next orbit it crosses back over California too? 90 minutes, 80, about an hour from now. That might be about right. Lighting conditions. I'll find out. Oh, also I got to get out of here because it's sun. I have to leave when it's sunset. All right. Thank you guys so much. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Bye.